Hi, Brian from Sipkens Nurseries here, and today is the middle of April, and we just wanted to answer a few questions for you that we get very frequently here in the garden center. As people finally get out into their garden, they're getting their grass cut, clean, fertilized, and ready for a new year. They're also inspecting their gardens, and they have many questions as to whether or not something that they planted is looking the way it's supposed to. Is it dead? Is it dormant? Is it coming back yet? Do I need to replace it? And so we'll give you a few pointers today on what things to look for in your garden. Now, we get a number of questions about, oh, my evergreen is dying. And in some cases, it might be. In some cases, it could have had a really hard fall and winter. Perhaps you hadn't given it the care that was required. But there's a few things that you can look for. And one of the things we look for is where is the dead? Where is the dead that you are seeing? Sometimes it is simply on the inside of a tree, such as on this pine tree here. And deep down inside the pine tree, you can look inside and say, oh, there's all kinds of dead needles. Yes, but we'd like to remind people that if there's no light, there won't be any leaves. So whether it be an evergreen or a deciduous shrub or a tree, on the inside of the plant is not going to maintain leaves long term because it's just not an advantageous spot to grow. The other thing that oftentimes happens over winter is plants will develop a winter color, where in their dormancy they will become maybe a little bronzy or a little bit brown colored over winter, and that can be natural. This is kind of a good example of a plant that does turn bronze over winter. This is the Rheingold cedar, and during the summer it is a bright limey green, but over fall and winter it slowly becomes a little more orange and a little more bronze. Now, some of the plants will be showing that they're coming back to life already, and others might take a little while longer. Perhaps they had a little bit of a rough go over winter, but there's a few things you can look for. Here, where the leaves crumble right off, it is obviously dead. Here on the tips, you can brush it a little bit and you can still feel it's still flexible, but it's not quite as bright as some of the growth that we see down here. So this plant here is exhibiting some winter damage, but it's not the end of the line for this plant yet. We can give it a little bit more time to see how it develops. And that can take a period of 4 to 6 weeks, and you'll see that the plant begins to recover from some winter damage, whether it be from excessive wind, perhaps you had a pet pee on your plants, perhaps you spread salt on your driveway or on your sidewalks and you got some on the plant. Those are all ways that damage can definitely happen, but don't grab the shovel quite yet. So this plant here is just starting to grow back. It might require a hair trim as it does continue to develop, and it might also turn tail and go the other way, but just be a little patient in the spring. Many evergreens will, even though they're called evergreens, will have a seasonal needle drop. And oftentimes we do see a heavy dropping of inner leaves, August through October. But sometimes you don't notice it until spring, and you might consider that it is dying. But as long as the plant is got healthy colored exterior foliage, and in the case of a pine tree is starting to put on sprouts, the growth is just starting to expand now. Those are good signs that the tree is developing. And over the period of the next 4 to 6 weeks, that's when a plant is going to give you more and more indication that it's coming back to life. Sometimes leaves or needles on an evergreen tree can be burnt, and fairly severely, that the whole plant looks orange, but the wood is still alive. There's a few ways you can inspect for that. One is looking for the buds that are developing on the tips. The other is actually doing a quick little scratch on the bark. And if you see that it is green underneath, you'll know that sap is flowing. Sometimes on a deciduous shrub, in this case it's a Weigela, we're not seeing the same indications on one as we are seeing on two neighbors. Keep in mind that newly planted plants, say less than 1 year established, are still individuals, and they will sprout at different times than each other. In this case, we are seeing some areas of the plant that are exhibiting no buds. We're seeing a couple other that the buds are starting to break open. And plants will usually send out a few little tester or signal leaves or buds break open slightly early, but as the April and May progresses, you're going to see more and more buds break open and develop. And you'll also notice that some branches will in fact be dead inside the plant, but the plant will fill in very quickly as it comes into leaf later in May. There are some plants that are notorious questions that we get around here. People thinking that they have died, that they're not coming back, but there are a few such as Rosa Sharon, butterfly bush, perennial hibiscus. These are plants that generally do sprout late, and especially first year establishment, you will find they sprout even later. I've had thinner plate hibiscus come back in the middle of July before. So just because you're not seeing activity at the same time other plants in your garden are showing activity, do remember that every plant is a different plant from each other. And there are lots of little things you can look for, but most people who jump the gun a little early and yank something out actually do damage to a plant that could very well come through from the winter. And so if you do have questions, you are welcome to email us a picture, especially if you have the correct name of the plant and a picture of what it looks like now. We can offer you guidance as to whether you should wait, whether it's time to replace the plant, and offer also care advice as to what steps to move forward. Thanks for watching, and we wish you a very successful spring garden.